people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
We'll start with this. Ozzy Liam Paro on the brink of a rematch with U.S. champion after big IBF call. Lucrative new deal. Australia's Liam Paro is suddenly just one win away from a blockbuster rematch with IBF super lightweight king Richardson Hitchins. And after signing a lucrative deal with the Australian promoters No Limit, less than a week after brutally finishing American Jonathan Navarro, Fox Sports' Straya can reveal Paro has been granted an IBF World Title Eliminator against undefeated Mexican Lindolfo Delgado, 23-0. While both a date and venue have yet to be determined, it is anticipated that promoters No Limit will pitch to bring the bout down under. Should Paro win, he will become the mandatory for Hitchins, the breakout U.S. star who took his IBF crown last December.
Whoever wrote this article's being real generous calling Richardson Hitchins a star.
So what are the odds that No Limit Promotions can bring Lindolfo down to Australia? I'd say they're pretty good. Lindolfo Delgado normally fights on Top Rank shows, but Top Rank very soon could be between broadcasters, and the story is they're not going to do any shows the entire month of August. Lindolfo's a good little fighter, but I don't get the sense that he's a big part of Top Rank's bottom line to where they would hold out on sending him to Australia. If they were willing to send Yanni Bek-Alam Kanalai to Australia, I think they'd be willing to send Lindolfo to Australia.
This is not the kind of fight that you fight for if you're top ranked, to where you put up a big amount of money to ensure it happens here.
The article continues. Tellingly, the deal has been confirmed within days of Paro signing a multi-year deal with No Limit Boxing, with the Rose brothers delivering immediately on their promise to provide the 29-year-old his path to another world title. Only last week, Paro scored a brutal stoppage win over Navarro in a historic Cairns homecoming.
Is that how you pronounce that?
So I pronounced it. While the former world champion initially signed only a one-fight deal with No Limit, the success of his North Queensland headliner has resulted in that contract now being extended by both parties over several years.
I always felt that Eddie Hearn dropped the ball with Liam Paro. He wins a fight against Subriel Matias, the Puerto Rican champion in Puerto Rico,
but he never got him a homecoming fight, like he got Regis Prograis a homecoming fight, Devin Haney,
Subriel Matias, Richardson Hitchins.
Going into the Hitchins fight, I kind of felt like Matchroom was more invested in Richardson Hitchins than they were in Liam Paro, but the story that time is telling,
Liam stands a better chance of becoming a draw in Australia than Richardson Hitchins does in America.
So maybe you would have been better off putting a little bit more effort into Liam's career than in Richardson Hitchins' career, because he just fought George Cambodia in New York City.
But who gives a damn?
Speaking about the Paro announcement on Tuesday, No Limit boss Rose stressed he was ready to turn Paro into not only a household name down under, but a superstar globally. This is exactly what we promised Liam, that he'd headline in Australia and be back on the path to a world title, Rose stressed. And now, here we are. This multi-year deal is about turning Liam into the global star we know he is, and right here in his own backyard.
I don't doubt No Limit's ability to do that, because look at what they've done with Tim Tszyu and Nikita Tszyu.
No Limit Promotions is a very well-to-do promotional outfit in the land down under, to where if you're an Australian fighter, that's where you want to be. And I don't doubt that they could do a lot for Liam Paro. They're doing a lot already. Rose continued, he's an elite talent, action-packed, entertaining, and ready to fight the very best. The Australian public are going to love him. He's our next pay-per-view star. In fact, The New Yorker refused to go into any detail about their first matchup, so convinced is he facing of Liam Paro again, yet while Hitchins had also stressed the fight would only be for a unification bout, suggesting the Aussie would need to go win himself a belt first, it now seems their rematch could come even quicker.
That's the beauty of the IBF. Any fighter in their rankings, fighting in those eliminators and winning them, has the assurance that whether it's Tyson Fury they have to order, or Canelo, or Golovkin, or Dmitry Bivol, one way or another, you'll get your shot. So the real question is, if push comes to shove and Liam beats Lindolfo, will Richardson Hitchins comply with the order, or will he abdicate the throne?
Now, I always had the sense that after the George Kambosos fight, that might be Richardson Hitchins' last fight as IBF champion. I got the impression he wants to go to 147. The reason for it, most of the big names at 140 have already moved up to 147. Richardson Hitchins is not interested in unifying this division.
And I don't think he's interested in fighting Liam again.
After the fight with George, he announced his free agency, and Eddie Hearn didn't take kindly to that. I don't know if moving forward, Matchroom will still promote Richardson Hitchins.
But we know who promotes Liam Paro. No Limit.
Paro expressed his gratitude to No Limit for having worked so quickly to provide him with a pathway back to Hitchins. The fighter added he was keen to bring the blockbuster fights down under. I'm proud to have signed with No Limit. It feels like home, and that means the world to me, the fighter said. I've fought all over the world, but nothing compares to walking out in front of a packed Aussie crowd. That's what I've always wanted, to come back, be a headline act in my own country, and fight for world titles right here at home. I've proven this is my division, and I want to be a world champion again. That's the goal. I believe I'm at the top level, and I want to keep proving myself back there. The bigger the names, the better. Whatever's going to elevate my career, that's what I'm here for.
My thoughts.
We're not going to get Liam Paro versus Richardson Hitchins 2, let alone in Australia. I anticipate that Richardson Hitchins might drop the IBF title and move up to welterweight before it comes to that. So even if you don't really like Liam's chances in a rematch with Richardson Hitchins, it doesn't matter because it won't happen.
What likely will is the Lindolfo Delgado fight in Australia. That's the one you gotta focus on. If Liam can win that one, become interim champion, then they can elevate him to full champion once Hitchins moves up.
All he's gotta do is beat Delgado. In my humble opinion, they need to rob him. By hook or by crook, Liam needs to win that fight.
Yeah, you don't think that's wrong?
Better wake up and smell the politics, sweetheart. Home field advantage is a real thing, and there's a good enough chance that Liam will have it when the time comes. In men's light heavyweight news, Callum Smith says David Benavidez' fight is definitely a possibility. Istanbul, Turkey. Callum Smith and David Benavidez are still in negotiations for a light heavyweight title fight later this year. Smith cemented himself as one of the leading challengers in the division back in February when he ripped the WBO interim title from Joshua Buatsi with a thrilling win on the undercard of the undisputed light heavyweight title fight between Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. Bivol later vacated his WBC title after defeating Beterbiev for all the belts, meaning Benavidez was lifted from interim to full champion, with Bivol and Beterbiev seemingly set on dueling for a third time later this year. It has left Benavidez with few options for a standout opponent. Smith is the leading candidate for a title shot after his win over Buatsi, and it had been reported that the pair were in discussions for a bout for Benavidez's WBC title. Yes, still ongoing, to be honest with you, Smith told Boxing Scene. I think things don't move as quickly as you'd like, especially as a fighter, and as fans, you kind of want to get it done in the next few days. But no, there's talks going on. I think it's a fight that definitely is a possibility. I think everything's got to make sense for both sides, for himself and for me. Fingers crossed, we've both got a good team, we can get it sorted, and that can be the next fight. Either way, whether it's David Benavidez or anyone else, the goal for me is still the same, to be a two-weight world champion.
We've been hearing about these talks for weeks, talks that are ongoing, but for Christ's sake, What are they talking about?
Yes, it's an option. If I can't land the Benavidez fight, then there's no world title fight, Smith said, of defending his interim title. There are all the other belts in that Bivol and Better Beef trilogy fight. So an interim fight in the meantime, and then, when the rematch happens, then the winner will be ordered to defend against me. So I either fight the winner of that fight for all the belts, or they vacate and I get elevated to full champion, and then I'm world champion, and I can fight whoever the next challenger is. Like I said, it's a bit of a strange position, but a good position nonetheless. I've got to just wait and see how things pan out, and I'll see what the next move is for myself. I've got a great team. I leave it all down to them, and I'm sure they'll come up with the best option. The goal for Smith remains the same. Become a two-weight world champion by any means necessary. Standing in at 6'3", the towering Smith is no small light heavyweight. Despite spending the majority of his career at 168, like Benavidez, where he won a world championship, Smith was asked if a move up to cruiserweight could one day be an option. I think I would with the right opponent, he replied. There's some big lumps up there, but when you look at the champions, obviously Jayo Pitaya is a good fighter. He's a genuine cruiserweight, but Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez was a super middleweight world champion at the same time as me, and the same with Badu Jack. He was a super middleweight. I was mandatory challenger for him when he was at super middle, so naturally, they're not really big people, so I'd fight either of those two most definitely. But some of the bigger cruiserweights at the moment, not so much there. It's definitely an option, but not at the minute. The goal is to become a two-weight world champion at light heavyweight. How best to do that, Callum?
If you come to America for a Benavidez fight, assuming you can even get it over the line, they're gonna B-side you. The judges, they're gonna give David all the consideration.
A-side privileges.
The only way Callum Smith wins that fight is if he knocks David Benavidez out, because if he leaves it in the hands of the judges...
I'm skeptical, still skeptical as to whether or not that fight will happen for the aforementioned reasons, because talks are still ongoing, and because...
Coming to America is not Callum's best path to a title when he's already WBO interim champion, and technically, all he really has to do is wait. Take a stay busy fight in the interim.
In tandem with other factors. Have you guys seen David Benavidez? There was a recent video of him uploaded.
In training.
The guy's gotta be over 200 pounds, 200 and change, maybe 225 in the video. And since November of last year, they've been courting the idea of moving up to cruiserweight and challenging Zurdo Ramirez, who just fought. He just fought on Jake Paul's undercard and took care of his mandatory challenger, meaning Zurdo is free right now.
So for getting into a haggling situation to bring Callum Smith to America, that doesn't make for that big a fight anyway here. You could go into a fight with Zurdo.
That would be a bigger fight in America, bigger at least than a Callum Smith fight. And that's what I've maintained throughout, that David might move up to cruiser and his stay at light heavyweight won't be long.
Fueling my skepticism as to whether or not a Callum Smith fight will happen, I wouldn't hold my breath.
A Mexican-American and a Mexican national sells better in America than a Mexican and a Brit.
On pay-per-view.
Callum Smith assures that the David Benavidez fight is an option, but he also assures that that's not his only option, that's not his only path. There are other ways to go about this, so I maintain my skepticism as to whether or not a fight between Callum and David will happen. Elsewhere in the light heavyweight division, you may have heard that Michael Eiffert's promoter says the IBF has ordered the Bivol fight. SES Boxing, the promoter for Michael Eiffert, has today announced that the IBF has ordered Dimitri Bivol to defend his light heavyweight title against the mandatory challenger Eiffert next. This would be the second order that has come down for Dimitri to face a mandatory since he became undisputed champion, undisputed no more.
He gave up the WBC title to go straight into a trilogy fight with Artur Beterbiev, and he may end up vacating the IBF title next.
Michael Eiffert became the mandatory challenger to the IBF title long before David Benavidez became the mandatory for the WBC, and long before Callum Smith became the mandatory for the WBO. Michael Eiffert became mandatory in March of 2023, 2 years ago, when he decisioned Jean Pascal in Montreal in what was an IBF final eliminator. Sporting a professional record of 13 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 5 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 14 professional bouts. Michael is best described as a boxer, not a puncher. You can see that by his knockout ratio. He's a mover, he's a jabber.
And if Dimitri vacates the IBF title, like he just vacated the WBC, Michael will become a champion, for better or worse.
And just being objective, you can't really fault Michael for this, and you can't really fault the IBF when they've given a 2-year grace period. That's saying a lot for the IBF, because they're normally more Johnny on the spot with their mandates. But they gave Artur and Dimitri enough time to do what they needed to do with each other, and now they should get this guy out of the way.
Dimitri has to, because Dimitri's the champion.
Now, it's possible that in order to smooth the situation over, and to ensure that there were at least 3 alphabet titles in the trilogy fight between Dimitri and Artur, Turkey maybe gets this guy a spot on the undercard against the Hammer-Negger.
Keep busy fight.
It's possible. I wouldn't rule it out, but it's just as possible, just as likely, that Dimitri drops the red belt just like he dropped the green one. Because even without those 2 alphabet titles, everybody already knows who the man to beat at light heavyweight is anyway. And it's not David Benavidez. It's not gonna be Michael Eiffert. All those guys are paper champions.
If Dimitri does drop the belt and Michael gets elevated to full champion, who cares?
It's not like it's a duck or anything. Dimitri's going into a more dangerous fight with a more dangerous fighter than a David Benavidez, than a Michael Eiffert. Have you seen this guy?
He's a boxer, he's a mover, he's a jabber. He's already lost 1 fight already.
Dropped a decision to Tom Dembski way back there in 2020. He's rebounded off that loss. He's currently on a 7-fight winning streak, last in action in August of last year opposite the ring Carlos Jimenez, who he retired in his corner after 2 rounds, and that was the only fight that he had last year. Before that, he had the Jean Pascal fight. That was the only fight that he had that year.
This guy doesn't fight that much.
He doesn't fight that often. He has yet to fight this calendar year. So they seem to be pushing for their shot at the IBF title. They might actually get it, but all the real money in the light heavyweight division leads to Saudi.
It's the truth. Any light heavyweight looking for the most bang for their buck has to be in leagues with Turkey LL Sheik.
The rest of the money in the light heavyweight division is in the UK, with those UK light heavyweights, Joshua Buatsi, Anthony Yard, Callum Smith.
That's where the rest of it is.
So in a situation where maybe Dimitri drops the red belt so that he can move forward with the Better Beef trilogy, and that red belt then goes to Michael really don't start making real money till he fights real opponents. That's the way it breaks down in every division, because the belt don't make the fighter makes the belt.
Especially when your claim to fame is a win over an over-the-hill John Pascal.
Nothing against Michael, but outside of that win over Pascal, there's not much to write home about there. And until he's in leagues with Turkey LL Sheik, at least in this division, he's not going to make any real money. He's not going to make any real waves. Those are some things to think about.